The noise never truly went away. It only changed volume, rising and falling with every rumor, every vacancy, every national whisper that linked Marcus Freeman to something else, somewhere else, something bigger, at least in the way the modern sports cycle defines bigger. When Notre Dame's 2025 season ended earlier than hoped, that noise swelled again, feeding on disappointment and uncertainty, tempting fans to wonder whether South Bend was simply a stop on Freeman's journey rather than its destination. Yet inside the Gug, there was a steadiness that never matched the outside anxiety, a belief that this particular offseason was not the breaking point so many feared. The 2026 season has loomed for months as an all-in year, a convergence of roster maturity, recruiting momentum, and institutional commitment that made walking away now feel not just premature, but incomplete. Freeman understood that, Notre Dame understood that, and his decision to stay, at least through this critical window, has clarified the mission. This is no longer about potential or patience. It is about execution, urgency, and transforming alignment into results. Freeman's return has not quieted expectations, it has sharpened them, and with that clarity comes a narrow list of off-season objectives Notre Dame must not merely address, but dominate if it wants to turn belief into a championship run in 2026. There has been a noticeable evolution in how Notre Dame is approaching roster construction, one that feels less reactive and more deliberate, less bound by tradition and more guided by timing. Freeman has always been calculated, a coach who thinks in layers, and the subtle shifts happening now suggest a program preparing to strike rather than simply sustain. The Irish are still rooted in development, still committed to recruiting high school talent and building from the lines outward, but there is also an acknowledgement that windows in modern college football open and close quickly. This one is open, and it demands decisive action. The foundation is strong, the infrastructure intact, but the margins are thin, and those margins will define whether 2026 becomes a season remembered for what almost happened or one that delivers Notre Dame's long-awaited return to the sports summit. The first and perhaps most symbolic step in that pursuit centers on the offense and the necessity of fully handing it over to Aeneas Williams. Under Freeman, Notre Dame has doubled down on its identity as a program forged in the trenches, one that believes physicality is not a stylistic choice, but a competitive advantage. While other national powers churn rosters through the transfer portal in search of instant offense, the Irish have largely stayed true to a model built on recruiting, patience, and internal growth, and nowhere is that philosophy more evident than in the running back room. The departures of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price to the NFL were expected, even celebrated, as signs of development done right, but they also removed the engine that powered much of Notre Dame's offensive explosiveness. Love and Price were more than productive backs. Together they defined tempo, rhythm, and threat, forcing defenses to account for speed, power, and unpredictability on every snap. Their absence leaves a vacuum that cannot be filled by committee indecision. It requires a clear leader, and Williams is positioned to become that figure. Now entering his third season in South Bend, Williams is not an untested projection. He has delivered in moments that matter, flashing reliability and poise when opportunities arose, including his Orange Bowl contributions and a 2-touchdown performance against Stanford when the offense needed stability. He has waited his turn behind a lineage of backs that speaks to Notre Dame's renewed excellence at the position. The program's recent history tells a story of resurgence, from Kyron Williams' all-around brilliance to Audric Estime's punishing downhill style, to Jeremiah Love's electric blend of speed and creativity. Each back brought something different, yet each thrived within the same structural commitment to line play and physical dominance. Williams now stands as the next chapter in that evolution, not as a replacement for Love or Price, but as his own defining force. The talent around him only amplifies the opportunity. Mike Denbrock's recruiting has stocked the room with elite young prospects like Jonas Walton and Javian Osborne, both top 200 recruits whose ceilings are undeniable. The depth chart is competitive, but competition does not negate leadership. Williams is the proven option, the back who understands the system, the expectations, and the physical toll of carrying the offense. Running behind an offensive line that continues to send players to the NFL and alongside a quarterback in C.J. Carr whose trajectory suggests Heisman-level potential, Williams is positioned not just for productivity, but for identity-shaping impact.
For Notre Dame to reach its ceiling in 2026, the offense must belong to him, not by default, but by design, embracing his toughness, energy, and consistency as the heartbeat of the unit. If establishing offensive clarity is essential, asserting control on the defensive side through the transfer portal is non-negotiable. The shift from Al Golden's Viper-heavy system to Chris Ash's defense was always going to involve growing pains, and those pains were evident early. Assignments were missed, pressures came late, and the unit at times looked like it was thinking rather than reacting. Criticism followed, some fair, some impatient, but what mattered most was how the group responded. As the season progressed, the defense stabilized, then improved, gradually resembling a unit capable of complementing a championship-caliber offense. Still, progress is not the same as dominance, and in a season where early missteps may have cost Notre Dame a playoff berth, the lesson was clear. There is no room for another slow start. The defensive interior remains the most glaring pressure point, an area where depth and disruption must be upgraded immediately. This is where the transfer portal becomes a weapon rather than a compromise. Notre Dame doesn't need a complete overhaul, it needs targeted impact, players capable of collapsing pockets, winning early downs, and allowing the rest of the defense to play fast. Options exist, and they are compelling. A player like Devon Tompkins from USC offers size, length, and the ability to generate interior pressure, along with the symbolic resonance of plucking a difference-maker from a departing rival. Ethan Westlowski from North Texas brings a reputation as a tackling machine, a defender whose instincts and coverage ability align with Freeman's vision of versatility and accountability. Ian Gaffard from Arkansas provides the raw power and anchor presence of a true nose tackle, someone who can command double teams and free linebackers to flow to the ball. These are not luxury additions, they are foundational pieces for a defense that must be ready from the opening kickoff of the season. Against the nation's elite offenses, disruption up front is the difference between forcing third and longs and watching drives extend. Notre Dame knows this, and the urgency surrounding defensive portal acquisitions reflects a program unwilling to leave its fate to incremental improvement alone. To compete for a national championship, Notre Dame must dictate terms defensively, and that begins with reinforcing the interior with players who can contribute immediately. The third pillar of this offseason, though less glamorous, may ultimately be the most decisive, preserving championship-level depth along the offensive line. Notre Dame's reputation up front is well-earned, built on years of development, technique, and physical dominance. But championships are not won by starters alone. They're decided by the 6th, 7th, and 8th linemen who step in when injuries strike, when fatigue sets in, when the season grinds into November and December. For C.J. Carr to develop fully and for Anais Williams to thrive, the trench advantage must not erode as the season progresses. The transfer portal offers insurance and opportunity here as well. Experienced linemen like Xavier Chaplin from Auburn bring SEC-tested pass protection and the ability to stabilize the edge. Carius Kern from LSU offers versatility and starting experience on both sides of the line, a valuable asset in a long season. Cohen Eccles provides consistency and strong pass-blocking metrics, and Brandon Best from Kennesaw State represents a developmental upside play, the type of under-the-radar addition Notre Dame has historically molded into reliable contributors. Adding even one of these players could be the difference between maintaining dominance and watching depth become a vulnerability at the worst possible time. What ties all of these goals together is intent. Marcus Freeman didn't stay at Notre Dame because the NFL wasn't interested. He stayed because he believes the work is unfinished and because the program has shown in tangible ways that it believes in him. In an era defined by constant movement and short-term calculations, that mutual commitment matters. It creates stability in a landscape that rarely offers it and sets the stage for a season where preparation, not speculation, defines the narrative. For Notre Dame fans, this offseason serves a reminder that the most consequential victories often occur far from the spotlight, in roster decisions, development plans, and strategic restraint. The Irish have their head coach, they have their quarterback, they have their identity, and at least through 2026, they have clarity. Now comes the hard part, execution, winning the games that define perception, beating ranked opponents when the stakes are highest, building a resume that leaves no doubt when playoff selections are made. The pieces are in place, the vision is unmistakable, and the urgency is real. What remains is turning all of it into results, and in doing so, determining whether this era culminates not in promise, but in Notre Dame's long-awaited 12th national championship.